Jarrett, it's so good to have you here.
It's wonderful to be with you, Meg.
When I invited you to Let's Talk Books, I told you that this is a book talking space, and I asked you to bring a favorite book that you would book talk. So what have you got for us?
All right, not only do I have my favorite book of all time, this is the very copy that I read as a child.
Oh.
Beverly Cleary's The Mouse and the Motorcycle. And when you open it up, you can see that I've written my name in it, third grade probably. I recall reading this book in the backseat of my grandparents' car, on the living room floor. And first of all, Beverly Cleary is just the queen and the best of all time. And it's about this little boy who goes on a trip with his parents. And he's an only child. He's incredibly bored. They stay at this inn. And meanwhile, there's this little mouse named Ralph who lives in the walls. And his family, his mom, says, do not interact with the humans. It's a story about friendship, and it's a story about adventure. It's a story about finding extraordinary in the very ordinary. And, you know, this, like, I've been chasing what this book made me feel as a kid and, like, everything that I've written.
What were you like as a reader when you were, what kinds of books drew you in?
I think one of the telltale signs of who I was as a reader was the bookmark that still is in this book. So I didn't think I was a reader because the reading that I loved to do wasn't considered real reading back in the 1900s, right? Because I loved reading comics. And so I also brought another favorite, which was Anything and Everything Snoopy. So I would read the comics in the newspaper. I would go to the comics store every month to get the latest issue of Superman or X-Men, because I needed to know, like, what's going to happen next to Batman in the next adventure. And so I didn't think I was a reader, but yet in my attic at home, I have storage bins filled with reading material that was not only so important to me that I would go out of my way to get it, but then put it in plastic covers to protect it. So
you created an archive.
I made it an archive. So I could only imagine I would have been so much more confident as a reader had the reading I was actively doing been validated when I was a kid.
Yeah, and here you are, a graphic novelist and your graphic memoirs as well, which I just love so much. But you write, you've written across so many different forms, all visual though, a lot of visual content in there. So what is it about telling a story visually, or in your case, I can see reading a story visually, that makes you connect so much?
Words and pictures they're teammates. You know, I brought my very first book. I'm not sure if you're familiar with my earliest work.
Oh, yes, The Owl Who Thought He Was the Best Flyer.
So when I was in third grade, I wrote this book in class. And we had to have a title page. And as you can see, I don't think copyright information or publishing information was asked, but I created my own publisher. And so for me, it was all there from the beginning. And I had a lifelong obsession of telling stories and reading stories with words and pictures. Because words and pictures are teammates that work together to tell the story. Some people will think that the illustrations are there to serve the words, but the illustrations have the same job that the words do, which is to communicate the story. And so often, you know, as adults, we forget to read the pictures closely. And I myself, especially when you're reading to your kid at bed and you're at the end of your day and you're just so tired, every single one of my children have picked up something in the illustrations of a book that told another part of the story that I had not taken in.
Oh, that must be so exciting, though.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And so, and without fail, I have a book called Peanut Butter and Jellyfish. And it's a picture book, and when I'm about to read it to a group of elementary school students and their teachers, I explain to them to read the pictures carefully. And then when I finish the book, I ask them to name all the characters. And there are 3 characters that are mentioned in the text, but there's a 4th character that's only told through the art.
You've written funny things that make, you know, milk squirt out of your nose when you read it, and you've written things that have made my heart squeeze like a fist. And so I want to ask you about that, about writing about family and how you go about doing that. How do you go about capturing a family in all of the different things that families can represent.
When I gained the courage to write about my childhood, I was much older. I was then in my mid-30s. And by then I had become a parent myself. And the thing about becoming a parent is you realize that your parents were human beings.
Oh, that.
That's. And so when you can get to the point when you realize that life isn't black and white, but varying shades of complicated grays, then you'll be able to write more truthfully about the people around you. You know, and also for me, I had to get to the point where, you know, my mother was not the villain of my childhood, but her opioid abuse disorder was the villain of my childhood. My mother, who was incarcerated throughout my childhood, she would always send me cartoons. And so a big part of why I'm an artist is because when she was in jail, she would send me this artwork, and I could see how talented she was. And I could know that both that talent was inside me and a predisposition to addiction was inside me. So as I was growing up and coming of age, I knew that I had some big decisions to make. And because I have all of this artwork and all of these letters she wrote me, I can see that love she had for me. Like I can take a step outside of my sadness and then look from her perspective of this mother who's now been separated from her son because she's behind bars. And she's sending him missives of love through artwork and letters.
Tell me something that you think is true about growing up and about reading and where those things meet in a kid's life.
It's a great question. The truth about growing up is that it's difficult, no matter your circumstances. The unknown can be so scary. And how that intersects with reading is it gives you insight into what life is like for other people, what futures could be like for you. You know, there are so many difficult truths in our books because there are so many difficult truths in our children's lives. Truths that they are going to encounter either firsthand or secondhand. And what a safe space it is to encounter some of those challenging concepts in the safe pages of a book before you're confronted with it in reality.
That's for sure. I couldn't agree more. Jarrett, you're a treasure to children's literature.
Thank
I'm
you.
so glad that you got a chance to sit down and that I got to see your original storybook. I'm going to hand this back to you. But thanks for being here, my friend.
Thank you, my
We're
friend.
lucky to have you.
I'm lucky to have you too.